Welcome back to Elle's Cozy Corner, where I am reading The Vampires Next Door, one chapter at a time. Last week I read the prologue, and we were introduced to Cara and Alda. Well, this week we're going to meet Alison and Rodham, but Cara and Alda are not out of the picture completely. We will find out more about them later on in the story. So now here we are in present day, St. Augustine, Chapter 1, Alison. Music surging from the apartment next door startled Alison awake. Her body rolled off the couch with a soft thump, landing on an assortment of throw pillows she kicked off during her nap. She pulled herself off the floor and rubbed the sleep from her eyes. Mouth dry as a Sahara as she headed towards the kitchen for water. A shrill scream vibrated against her eardrums, causing her to jump, and dropped her empty tumbler. It crashed to the floor with a loud thunk, mimicked by the shattering glass outside her front door. The apartment complex was always quiet, especially after dark. It had to be the new neighbors. After sunset, they'd moved into the adjoining apartment. As a lonely girl in a new city, she'd watched them with admiration. Two women, neither over the age of 25. Single women living on their own. One with long brown wavy hair and eyes bluer than she'd ever seen before. A surreal blue. The other girl had blonde highlights throughout the light brown hair, framing her flawless face and intense green eyes. Both had curves in the right places. Self-conscious, she had compared her still developing body to the mature one's. Her gut swelled over her sweatpants, and her chest had barely sprouted. She wore an A-cup to make herself feel better, but really, she didn't think anyone would notice when she went braless. At that moment, her admiration for them plummeted. Beautiful or not, they were an annoyance. Two voices, one female and one male, argued in the breezeway, the open-air hallway between the apartments, upsetting her, but also piquing her natural teenage curiosity. She peered through the peephole, hoping to catch sight of someone in the breezeway between the apartments, but all she saw was the apartment across the hall, her own front door blocking the view of the adjoining apartment. "I hate you!" The door slammed so hard it made the walls tremble and the door shake. Allison's face pressed against the door. She yelped from the jolt against her nose. Rubbing it, she moved away and strolled back to the kitchen, picking up her tumbler and poured filtered water into it, drinking it all in several successive gulps. Catching her breath, she considered her options. She could knock on the door and ask them nicely to lower the music, or she could wait it out. Home alone, as her mother worked as a nurse at Flagler Hospital and hundreds of miles from her father and best friend, she was unsure what to do, but didn't feel like knocking on the door was the best choice. Actually, the idea freaked her out. Instead, she padded to the coffee table, picked up her tablet, and checked the time. She was overly dismayed when her tablet screen displayed 11 p.m. A tad scared, but nosy and irritated, she slid the patio door open and listened. Maybe they were wrapping up the party. All she heard was murmuring, half drowned by the music. Upset, lonely, and slightly frightened, she sent her BFF in Virginia a message. "I hate my life. New neighbors are crazy. I miss you." She knew Vicky was asleep like normal people and wouldn't see her message for several hours. Alison laid her phone on the table and gazed towards the heavens. A chunk of moon peeked out from the surrounding clouds. Always interested in lunar phases, as most paranormal books she read featured the moon was an important piece of the story, and each phase having a specific meaning. The most well-known were the werewolves, who morphed during a full moon. But red moons and blue moons had meanings too. Her body shuddered as the party next door continued, but the steady purr of a familiar vehicle kept her plastered to the chair. Within seconds, an emerald green Charger hugged the road as it passed her screened patio. Her eyes moved as the driver swung around the curve. She jumped from the plastic patio chair, grabbed her phone, her heart beating fast within her chest, and with a sigh, stepped inside, almost forgetting her troublesome new neighbors. She slid the heavy glass door closed, bolting all the locks, and tugged to be sure. She raced toward the dining room window and parted the blinds. A large breezeway with philodendrons planted in the middle separated the apartments. She recognized the emerald green Dodge Charger and its driver, Rodham. To her, his chiseled body screamed for every teenage girl in a 50-mile radius to pay attention. He lived kitty-corner to her apartment and directly across the hall from the new, loud neighbors. He rounded the corner of the building, keys jingling in hand, eyes shooting a glance across the hall towards the partying neighbor's apartment. Well-defined muscles on his forearm bulged as the key twisted in the lock. She imagined herself wrapped in those arms, his full lips kissing her neck and drifting behind her ears. Still a virgin, with no prospects or past boyfriends, thoughts of Rodham filled her waking and sleeping mind. Under no circumstances did she think a hot, dreamy creature like Rodham would date an ordinary, overweight ginger like her because she lacked the talent and looks to suck men into her web. Rodham closed the door, and her moment of teenage lust ended. Dropping the blind, she sauntered to the fridge and lifted the papers hung on the fridge with magnets, searching for an emergency number for their apartment complex. Her mother was organized down to every detail. As the thought brushed her mind, she glanced at the pillows still lying on the floor and made a mental note to pick them up before bed. With a triumphant grin, she found the number and lifted it off the fridge. Loud neighbors at 11 p.m. was an emergency in her book. She dialed the number and it directed her to leave a message. What if I was dying? What if someone broke in and I was shivering in terror in my closet? Whatever. She shrugged and left a message, tossed the pillows onto the couch and crawled into bed, drawing the comforter over her head and sticking in her earbuds. She turned up the volume, attempting to drown the commotion next door, and opened her tablet to the current book, City by the Bay. 30 minutes later, a pounding on the front door interrupted her reading, and a shudder ran down her spine. She curled further under her covers like a frightened turtle inside its shell. Rodham. Bottle cap skittered across the cement breezeway as Rodham rounded the corner. It landed in the dirt next to a philodendron leaf. A shattered glass bottle twinkled in the lights. Its contents sprayed across the cement wall, puddling on the concrete beneath. The heavy beat for the music across the hall thumped against his eardrums. When he drove past the apartment, he captured a glimpse of the new neighbors. Several people stood on the patio, each holding drinks in their hands. The sliding glass door opened. He saw into their apartment, where a woman with blondish hair danced against a dark-haired man, her back rubbing his chest. She slid down him, her flowing hair trailing across his torso. Her partner leaned his face towards hers as she grabbed a handful of his dark hair. Rodham fumbled with the lock, aware their apartment across the hall was empty when he left with his friend, Adrian, for Daytona to surf. Now, new, annoying neighbors partied and littered the breezeway. He wondered how the quiet ginger next door was faring against the noise. Always aloof with her tablet in front of her face. At the beach, the pool, slung in a hammock on the shore of the man-made lake at the apartment complex. Her amber eyes mysterious and deep, ginger hair trailing her back with gentle waves across her shoulders. Freckles kissed her porcelain cheeks. Intent on her tablet, she always twisted stray strands between her fingers. From the corner of his eye, he caught her amber eyes peering from her parted blinds, biting her natural cherry-colored bottom lip, watching as he hurried and closed the door, locking out the new, annoying neighbors. One finger pushed against his ear, his cell phone meshed against his other. Rodham's father acknowledged he was home with a quick flash of his eyes. Then he squinted and bent over, talking to the person on the other end of the line. His mom sat, feet propped on the coffee table and plugs in her ears, her back against the soft cushion of the sectional. Closed captioning jogged across the TV screen. She waved at him as he disappeared into his room. Beach sand stuck to every part of his body. He gathered clean clothes and rushed into the shower. He allowed the water to wash the sand down the drain, the cute ginger filling his thoughts. Fully focused on her, a set of dagger-tipped fangs interrupted his thoughts. A single drop of blood hung in the air as it fell from the point of a fang. A thunderous knock blasted him out of the vision. Catching the shower's side handle to keep him from slipping, he knocked the back of his head against the wall, hard enough to give him a temporary headache. He scurried out of the shower. Both his parents were watching something through the parted blinds. And that is chapter 1. Stay tuned and find out what happens next week with Alison and Rodham in chapter 2.